Fastify is an efficient web framework for Node.js with a powerful plugin architecture. Fastify allows the user to extend its functionalities with plugins. A plugin can be a set of routes, a server decorator, a database connection, or whatever you want. In this video, I'm going to show you how to use plugins in Fastify to define the routes of an API, access environment variables, and work with MongoDB. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel, and let's get to it. On a previous video, we started working with Fastify. We created a simple API for messages. We added 3 endpoints, and we associated the schema to each of the endpoints. And we also added a global error handler here. Okay, now we are going to get started by refactoring our code to create a plugin to include all the routes there. So I'm going to create a new folder. I'm going to call it routes. And I'm going to create a new file. And I'm going to call it messages. And here to set up the plugin that is going to include the routes of our API, we need to add a function. So this will be async function routes. And we are going to receive Fastify and an object that is options. Okay, so once we have this function, now I'm going to grab all the endpoints from here. I'm going to move this into that function. Okay, and here we need to export this function, module.exports equals routes. And I forgot to import the schemas. I'm going to also move this from here to our routes plugin. And I'm going to move the schema file into that routes folder. And the way that we have in Fastify to use plugins is using the register interface. So this is fastify.register. And this is require. And this will be the path to our messages file. This is routes. And this is messages. And here we're going to pass an option that will be the prefix of our API routes. This is prefix, and this will be /API. And for example, we can add the version. So let's say v1. Okay, now let's run the server and let's see if our application works as we expect. npm run dev. This is going to start NodeMon. Let's go to Postman. Okay, let's send a request to our API. So the URL of our API is localhost, the port is 3000, and here we need to add the prefix, that is /API/v1, and the endpoint is messages. Let's send the request, and as we can see here, we get a 200, and we get the response. Fastify provides a couple of methods to handle errors when loading plugins, and the first method is fastify.after. And this is going to run after the previous plugin has been registered. So in this case, after we register our routes plugin, it's going to run this method. And if there are any errors, it's going to receive the errors as a parameter. So this is error. And here we can add a conditional. So we can say if there are any errors, then we can do console log. And we can pass here the error. If there are no errors, we can say plugin loaded successfully. And there is another method that is fastify.ready that is going to run after all plugins has been registered. And again, if there are any errors, it's going to receive the error as a parameter. So here we can use the same sentence. So if there are any errors, we show those errors using console log. And here we can change the message. We can say all plugins loaded successfully. Now I'm going to install another plugin that will allow us to check and access environment variables. npm install Fastify Env. ENV. Okay, the Fastify Env library has been installed. So I'm going to register that plugin here. So this is Fastify.register. And here we are going to require the Fastify Env library. So this is require, and this is Fastify Env. And we're going to pass a set of options here. First, we're going to enable using .env files to pass the environment variables. So this is .env true. And then we are going to pass the schema to validate the environment variables that we receive. So this is schema. The type will be object. And after we install this plugin, we're going to install a plugin to access MongoDB. So we are going to receive an environment variable that will be the MongoDB URL. And here, in order to define that environment variable, we need to add properties. And here we need to add the name of the environment variable, that in this case will be MongoDB. And the type of this environment variable would be a string. And here we can also pass the default value for it. And we're going to leave this empty for now. And here we can also set that, for example, this property would be required. So this is required. And we can pass here an array. In this case, we're going to pass MongoDB as an environment variable that is required in our application. Now we're going to install a new plugin to access MongoDB. So this will be npm install Fastify MongoDB. And here we are going to register that plugin. So this is Fastify.register. And here we're going to require the MongoDB plugin. This is require, and this is Fastify MongoDB. And we're going to pass the URL to access the database. So this is URL, and this is process.env.mongodb. And here we're going to add a new file that will be a .env file. And here we're going to add the environment variable that is MongoDB. And here we're going to set the URL to access the database. In my case, I'm going to add a URL to access MongoDB Atlas. And now that we loaded the MongoDB plugin, we are going to use it from our messages route. So the way to access the MongoDB database is, for example, getting a specific collection that we're going to read and write from our routes. Const collection, and this is fastify.mongo.db.collection. And here we're going to pass the name of the collection, that in this case will be messages. Okay, and we will be able to access the MongoDB database if it is in the parent scope. Here we registered this Fastify MongoDB plugin in a different scope. So we need to use a wrapper, that is the Fastify plugin wrapper, to expose this connection to the parent scope so that we can access the collection from here. So hopefully that makes sense. So I'm going to add a new plugin. I'm going to create a new folder. This will be plugin. And here I'm going to add a new file, and this will be mongodb.js. And here we need to install a new dependency. This is npm install, and this is Fastify plugin. And here we need to require that plugin. So this is const, this is Fastify plugin, and this is equals to require, and this is Fastify plugin. And here we need to add a function, and this is db connector. And here we're going to receive Fastify and the options. And here we have to move the register that we added here so that we can access to the MongoDB connection from the parent context. So I'm going to paste that in here. And here we need to export the function from the module.exports equals to Fastify plugin, and here we need to pass the DB connector function. Okay, and now from our routes, we will be able to access the MongoDB database. Okay, and now we need to register this plugin in our server. So this is fastify.register, and here we're going to require the MongoDB plugin file. So this is require, and this is plugin, MongoDB. Okay, this is the messages collection that is empty. So first, let's work on our post endpoint to insert new messages. So here we can do collection.insert1. And here we can pass an object, let's say message, and this will be equals to the message property that we receive as part of the body of the request. So this is message equals to message. And now let's access the collection from this get endpoint so that we get all the messages that we have in that collection. So this is const result equals to await collection.find.toArray. And here we just return the result. Okay, now let's run the server and let's see if it works as we expect. npm run dev. Let's go to Postman. If we send a GET request, the response will be empty because we don't have any messages in the database. So let's run a POST request, and we're going to send this request with this message, and we'll click on send, and we get a 200. So if we check the database, yes, we have the first document here. And now let's run a GET request. So if we run here, and we get a 200, and we get an array with a single element. This is the element that is in the database. That's all I have for today. Thank you guys for watching, and I see you in the next one. Take care. Bye.